Mr. Savdekar, Rahul Savdekar, we've heard a lot of talk about technology, how technology has made it impossible to stop globalization, that it has helped everybody come together on one platform. This issue of deglobalization, again, your definition, do you believe in it? And what will be the impact on technology, given your background?
Thank you so much for this interesting questions and definitions. I just have to say that most of the views that I'm going to express are my own and not necessarily being endorsed by Microsoft. I think for me, the definition of deglobalization is more about putting your own interest first. And I don't think that has been the thing which has not been existing in the past. I think the deglobalization and globalization have been coexisted for a long, long time together. How much of each has encroached on the other's territory is something to debate right now, but more or less the trends have actually been around for quite a long time. Giving an example of the whole Indian freedom struggle, right from Mahatma Karamchand Gandhi talking about, the whole Swadeshi movement, which was nothing but a deglobalization and renouncing the, kind of trade and the goods which were basically brought in. If I look at the four fundamental pillars of deglobalization, typically talking about goods and services, talking about labor or people, talking about capitalism, talking about technology, I think all of these have equal or more or less equal amount of shares to kind of talk about how the whole way the structure is going to come out with. But from a technology standpoint, I think there has been major reforms, and we all talk about the fourth industrial revolution right now, that we are all looking at everything which is cyber and physical combined together. I think that has basically affected the whole aspect of globalization in a way where the whole boundaries across the world are quite blurred now. There is a free movement of goods in a way, and not contradicting to what Mr. Bansali said, but in a way that that's the intention to go about it. How much of that actually happens is still debatable, whether unilaterally or bilaterally or whatever it is. But I think the boundaries have blurred, and there are excellent examples. And I was reading about Estonia the other day, and Estonia is one country wherein you have a provision to kind of take a citizenship to start a business in that country, so that you can kind of promote those. And you could be the citizen of any other country in the world, and you can still do that. The second example I would want to give here is typically on the demographics that Professor Chinda talked about. Quoting an example of Japan here, and because of the aging population, and I happen to work with one of the largest postal companies in the world, which is Japan Post. So they have come out with this whole innovative plan of using their mailmen to look at providing elderly care services, or rather going ahead with delivering of the food.
Because they go door to door, they're there all the time.
Absolutely door to door, and that's purely because that they want to use the technology but still want to protect the people that they are actually working with. And this is something which is really giving rise to the whole globalization kind of issues which are coming out across us. The third thing which I would want to talk about here is this whole thing about ease of doing business across the world. So most of the countries across the world are talking about ease of doing business, and how that has basically come out with rankings, and where does India stand in those rankings.
We're very happy, aren't we, that we've come up some 23 places to 77?
Absolutely. That's something to look forward to. But I think more or less the deglobalization and the globalization are there to stay together. I think balance is the key here in terms of how does the deglobalization would impact the trade policies across the way the development, kind of pace is being worked at. That's what my initial thoughts would be, specifically looking at. I think this being a more of a public policy summit, I think the importance here is basically to look at how does one entity or a country or a government look at the policy formation around these issues. The key here that we would look at is more in terms of making it Glocal, which is more of global and local combined put together. So that would be my initial thoughts.
So that's deglobalization and globalization existing together, not one after the other, but at the same time. Kind of like when they threw out Coca-Cola and they had 777. I'm sure most of the audience here would not remember that at all.